Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. As you take your seats and you find your places and you start eating, I'd just like to make a special introduction as we get started this afternoon. I want to direct your attention to the doors in the back of the room and to the parade of flags represented this afternoon by Cypress Elementary School, which is part of the Osceola County School District. Let's give these kids a round of applause as I introduce them. Here we go. We begin with Argentina and the Bahamas. Here they come, Argentina and the Bahamas. Followed by Bangladesh and Bolivia. Brazil and Canada is next. Chile and China. Hay colombianos aquí because here comes Colombia. Colombia and Costa Rica. And now representing Cuba and Ecuador. ¿Dónde están los cubanos? Egypt and El Salvador is next. England and Spain. France, Germany, come on up. Guatemala, Guyana. Guatemala right here, right up front. Haiti, Honduras. India, Italy, Jamaica, and Japan. Up next is Mexico. Oh! And finally, Morocco and Nicaragua. Let's give all these beautiful kids a big round of applause. All right, if everyone can take their seats, we're going to get started in just a moment. Thank you. Nobody told me. We have a few more here. Pakistan and Panama, Paraguay and Peru, Philippines, and I think there probably are a lot of Puerto Ricans here, right? Here comes Puerto Rico. Dominican Republic, the Russian Federation, ay Dominicanos, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, the United States, yeah, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Vietnam. Now they're all here. All right, a big round of applause for these great kids. All right, and now we're just going to get started in just a moment. So everyone, please take your seats and we'll get started with our program. Thank you. Let's give all our countries a round of applause as they go this afternoon. Thank you, guys. Great job. Thank you. Go.
Please help me welcome our Master of Ceremony for this event, Miss Nancy Alvarez of WFTV Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to get started as you enjoy your lunch. We have a lot of special things for you this afternoon. It is my absolute honor to be here. I was not going to pass up this opportunity to be here because I just want to say very quickly that I'm honored by everything you all do. It is such an important thing for our children to be bilingual. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you all do. I have a 2-year-old. I think many of you will appreciate this. So far, I have agua, vamos, and when I ask him, oye, ¿qué dice Celia Cruz? He goes, azúcar. And that's it. That's all I have. So thank you for everything you all do so that when children like my son grow up and go on to school, they have more opportunities to be bilingual besides my azúcar that I'm teaching him at home. So muchas gracias for everything. I want to begin with Dr. Leo Gomez, who is the NABE treasurer. We want to welcome Dr. Gomez to the stage. It is my honor. So if Dr. Gomez is here, it's time to listen to him. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Enjoying the conference so far? Awesome. Well, we, of course, have some distinguished individuals that we honor at this awards luncheon, and we're very excited every time we get to do this, and it's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful opportunity to share this with family. What I want is all of the folks that are receiving an award, either dissertation or essays, student essays, or any kind of other recognition, please stand up where you are. Let's recognize you really quick. We are very excited. Let's appreciate what they do. I know that it was a rigorous application process for all of these awards that we give. And we know a lot of people do so much great work, but we get to recognize a few. So enjoy your lunch. And before we actually continue, I'm going to have Ms. Tamara Salgado. She is the chair of the committee chair for the awards luncheon. Here she comes.
Sí se puede. Muy buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. It is with pride and joy that I can stand here as the event committee chair and coordinator of modern languages and dual languages in Polk County, Florida. I am proud of all the winners in this room. Congratulations. And the arrangements at the tables were made by Eastside Elementary Dual Language Strand Program, where the students for the past 2 years, according to our analyzed data, are outperforming the regular classroom students in our state FCAT assessment. Due to excellence, due to excellent quality of our teachers and administrative support, because they believe in the program. At this time, we're going to proceed to our entree, and we're going to take a few minutes before we present our guest speaker at this time. Yes.
All right, everyone, we have a lot to get to this afternoon. So as you enjoy your lunch, I'd like to get everyone's attention. We're going to get started with our program.
Let me introduce them.
Okay.
We're going to introduce her then at
Yeah.
this time. Okay,
You want me-
perfecto.
Do you want me to do it? Or?
No, I'll do it. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
It is my delight to introduce at this time Raquel Regalado, Dade County School Board Member.
Buenas tardes. Es un placer y buen provecho. Yo me llamo Raquel Regalado y aunque nací en los Estados Unidos, empecé la escuela a los 5 años sabiendo solamente una palabra de inglés: restroom. Hoy soy miembro de la Junta Escolar y tengo el orgullo de hablar con ustedes sobre nuestros programas, no solamente sobre ELL, pero sobre los gran éxitos que hemos tenido en el sistema escolar del condado Miami-Dade, que es el cuarto más grande en los Estados Unidos. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, my name is Raquel Regalado, and while I was born in the United States, I started school at 5 years old knowing only one word in English: restroom. My mother decided that that was the most important one that a 5-year-old should know, and it worked out very well for the first 2 days. I'm here today as a school board member for Miami-Dade County, the 4th largest school district in the United States, to talk to you about ELL. As a former ELL, I want to tell you about my story so that you'll understand how significant it is and the different challenges that we face, not just with ELL children like myself, but also with their parents. Like I said, I started school at 5, knowing only one word. And I wish that I could impress upon you the shame that I had when I realized that I was one of the few children that did not know English. Both of my parents knew English, but English was forbidden to be spoken in my house. My parents, being Cuban Americans that came at 10 and 11 respectively, had decided that English was something that I could learn at school and that it was important that I maintain my culture and language. Today, as a fully bilingual person, I thank them for that, but it did cause a little bit of trauma growing up, especially at 5 or 6. In 5th grade, having a good memory, I memorized a lot of words and soon realized that I just had to memorize the English word and the Spanish word, although it got a little complicated at about 5 months when I realized that there were more Spanish words than English words, and we actually had more letters in the alphabet, and no one could explain why there was a difference. In 6th grade, my brother was diagnosed with dyslexia, and my parents were very concerned that maybe I would have a problem learning English, which is what was occurring to him. So I was put in a different school where I was the only ELL student. All of a sudden, not having anyone to relate to, I realized on the first day that while I had memorized some words, it wasn't enough to keep up with what the other children were saying. My 1st grade teacher, Miss Medulla, asked me a question at 10:45. I remember the time because I was staring at the clock. And when I paused to respond, she said, "Miss Regalado, do you not understand?" And I fumbled to answer. And she said, "Well, if you didn't do your homework, you're going to have to go to the corner." As I walked to the corner, I tried to explain to her that it's not that I didn't know the answer, it's just that it took a lot of time to change the words. "Change the words?" she asked. I said, "Yes, change the words." "Why are you changing the words, Miss Regalado?" I was trying to explain to her that I had to translate from Spanish to English and then back in order to answer her question. Miss Medulla felt bad after the first day, and I asked her that day if instead of going to recess, she could help me with my English. I was so ashamed of not knowing English and the fact that everyone else knew, and everyone always asked me the same question: "But weren't you born in this country?" I was born in Miami, Florida, but raised inside a very unique enclave. In the months that followed, I learned English during recess with Miss Medulla one-on-one, and she did a fantastic job. She was impressed by my desire to learn, but soon realized that I had a unique problem that she had not seen in her other students, and that was a problem with cohesion. I didn't understand cohesion. I had memorized words, but when the second or third sentence referred back to the first, I didn't necessarily understand what they were talking about. This is something that a lot of ELL students experience and something that ELL teachers have gotten very good at understanding, especially 32 years after my classroom experience with Miss Medulla. Understanding that my problem was not memorizing words and putting words together, but understanding the underlying concept and referring back or referring forward, she decided to send me to the library with Miss Medulla. Miss Medulla sent me with Miss Johan. Miss Johan was the librarian, and what she asked me to do was read books. And after every paragraph, I had to write a sentence or two summarizing the paragraph. I could write it in Spanish or English, and usually did both because it made it easier to translate. By the end of the first grade, I was tested. It was the first year that they started testing children for ELL in the school that I attended, and I had achieved a third grade reading level. My success as an ELL student placed me as a former ELL student by the time that I was in second grade. Today, a lot of people ask us how long it takes for English learners to become proficient. And the only adequate answer is it completely depends on the English learner. A few things that I want you to consider while we talk about this topic. Number one, the myth of English learning, that non-English speakers do not want to learn English. This is one of the first barriers that we experience, not just with children, but also with adults. But I can tell you from my experience, there was no greater shame than not knowing the language of the country that I was born in and not understanding what people were saying or not being able to grasp quick enough what they expected from me as a response. My proudest moment in elementary school was in third grade when I was chosen the valedictorian of my class and presented in both English and Spanish. Thank you. But there's a few factors that you have to consider that dramatically impact the ELL process. The first is the Enclave. Growing up in Miami-Dade, not only was I surrounded by Spanish speakers, but my parents were both radio journalists and lived in a completely Spanish world. Afterwards, I grew up, after school, I went to a radio station where everyone spoke Spanish. Everyone wrote in Spanish, and everyone communicated every single aspect of their daily lives in Spanish. I went home to a household where English was not allowed and where TV was a privilege that was only allowed for about an hour a week. So access to native speakers is really important and something that we have to consider, especially as Hispanic populations grow, and we know that there is the automatic desire to be near other similarly liked Hispanics or other groups. Whenever you have an enclave, you have an issue with English learning because the children don't have access to English speakers. So there has to be a system provided for that. The second issue that we see at Miami-Dade and in other school districts is cost. Cost is very important when we talk about English learning. When we talk about students, not necessarily an issue because they're in school, but we know that if the parents are learning English, then the students are all the more likely not just to learn, but to consider it a priority. Earlier we were talking about the impacts of dual language, and one thing that I always want to mention to people is if you have not seen it, consider the fact that in a lot of our communities, these children are holding their parents hostage with language. They are the ones that translate what the teacher says, translate what the documents that come home say, and act as the translator in the lives of their parents. Not only does that add a dynamic that affects their personal childhood, but it also empowers them at an age that for some of them is not necessarily positive for their education. So we have found that it's very beneficial for the parents to be learning English, if not at the same pace, at a similar pace than their students. Childcare. Miami-Dade County, we provide childcare in our adult education systems. This has been spectacular, especially since age is an issue. We know that when we talk about English learners at the adult level, between 22 and 45 is not only where they are most likely to go beyond one class, but most likely to be successful in proficient English instruction. Past the 45 mark, it gets harder. Past the 60 mark, even harder. So childcare between the ages of 22 and 45 are very important for a successful adult program. Time. A lot of English learners, especially adults and some teenagers, have jobs. In some cases, 1 or 2 jobs. One thing that people need to understand when we talk about English learners is that their ELL classes do not count towards graduation. So dual enrollment becomes very important. And usually because of their economic situation, they're also working at 15, 16, or 17. So they're taking classes at night so that they can graduate in time, and they're also working. There needs to be a certain amount of flexibility put into the system to accommodate for those non-traditional students, especially if we want them to graduate in time as opposed to just take the GED or drop out, which is what we see in a lot of students if that is not provided. Pride. Pride is such a huge component of this. And at Miami-Dade County Schools, we try to focus on adult centers, community centers, and grouping people not just by like abilities, but by like ages, which is also very successful. It's something that you really need to consider how you approach an English learner. Like I was mentioning earlier, in my experience, I had to pause before answering. For a lot of teachers, that's very annoying. The same with looking someone in the eyes. For a lot of English learners, that's very difficult, not just culturally, but because there is a certain amount of shame. It's not that they don't want to learn or they don't want to communicate. It's that there's an entire process associated with the communication that makes that communication not as fluid as it would be if they were a native speaker. In the year 2006, NALEO, an organization that I'm a very proud member of, issued a report that has had a dramatic impact on school districts throughout the United States. In that report, NALEO found that there were waiting lists, in many cases more than 2 years, for English learners in heavily Hispanic areas that were not being afforded the opportunity to learn. Since then, things have changed dramatically. In the last 3 years, we've seen an increase not just in the amount of programs that public schools and colleges are providing for English learners, but more importantly, I think, in the involvement of Hispanics in school boards around the United States. And that has had a dramatic impact in access to English learning and in making access to English learning and English learning programs a priority for school districts. At Miami-Dade County, we serve 375,000 students, 100,000 adults. The 100,000 adults, of those, 87% are English learners. At Miami-Dade County, we start the process of ELL with a survey. When a child registers, we ask them what their primary language is. If their primary language is not English, they are then asked to take an exam. After that exam, there is a determination if they are ELL or not. And when they are considered proficient for ELL, then they become formally ELL and are tracked for 2 more years beyond that. Earlier, I mentioned that age is important for adults, especially between 22 and 45 for English learning. For children, interestingly enough, it's K through 5. In our system, we have found that children in the 4th and 5th grade that are formerly ELL actually score better than their non-ELL counterparts in not just literacy in the FCAT, but also in mathematics and science. That number tapers off dramatically once you get to 5th grade. All that information is in the booklet that you were given. I didn't want to bore you over lunch with statistics, but it's all there. You can see our adult numbers and our K through 12 numbers. And finally, there is no one-size-fits-all answer to ELL. There is something in the horizon that may or may not be beneficial, and that is digital learning. There is some information on digital learning in the packet. Right now, the digital learning is not having the success that classroom face-to-face interaction has with ELL. It's about 30%. So there are some concerns that expanding those programs and reducing the others will have a negative impact on districts as large as Miami-Dade, but it is an opportunity for districts that do not have any ELL programs to provide access virtually for other students. So we just need to monitor it. Finally, I want to thank you all for your commitment to bilingual education. I am convinced that it makes not just for a better student, but for a better community. Thank you.
All right, don't go just yet. Stick around for 1 second. It's so nice to meet you. It's just an honor to have you as a speaker, honestly, and your story is so inspiring, and it really makes me feel like I'm not alone because I didn't speak English either when I started, or Spanish, or English. I didn't speak English either when I started school, and I grew up to be a news anchor, so how about that? It's a miracle. All right, just a moment. Before you leave the stage, though, I want to present Nilda Aguirre. She wants to give you a very special recognition for being a part of this today.
Also on behalf of the Mr. Murphy Foundation.
Okay, you want to go over to the microphone if you like?
Thank you,
Raquel. On behalf of the Jose Marti Foundation, we would like to give you this plaque for your active role in local and national level, helping our children, and we really congratulate you for all you have done.
Thank you so much. Mwah. Thank you.
And on behalf of NABE, we would like to honor with this special recognition award for being our honored guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more, I think. Yeah. Yes, no, yes, no.
No.
Good? We're good? Awesome. Thank you so much. You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
And right now, we would like to give a warm welcome to NABE board member Dr. Yi Wan, who will present Student Essay First Place Award for elementary schools. So, round of applause, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Student Essay Awards recognize students who demonstrate writing achievement in 2 languages. As many of you may know that one of NABE's initiatives is the Seal of Biliteracy. Our vision is to support graduating seniors who demonstrate competency in 2 or more languages to receive the recognition by the time that they graduate from high school. And so far, California and New York had already passed the legislation to honor students for their competency in multilingualism. So hopefully, this is our dream that in all of the states, students will be recognized by their bilingual skills. So with that, the National Association for Bilingual Education proudly recognizes Elvin Rodriguez as the recipient of the First Place Student Essay Award at the elementary level. So Elvin, would you please come up and join me on the stage? Okay, to his mouth. Okay, great. So Elvin? Welcome, welcome, and congratulations. So now I would like to invite Alvin to read his essay either in English or in Spanish. So Alvin.
The power of bilingual. It is important to be bilingual. Bilingual is a person that speaks 2 languages. I am bilingual. I speak English and Spanish. When I grow up, I want to be a doctor or a fireman. If I become a doctor, I'll earn more money. Because when you speak 2 languages, you can understand people that talk a different language. You can translate so that the other people can understand. Being bilingual makes you smarter. Some scientists have discovered when you're bilingual, your brain connects with different things and makes you smarter. Being bilingual is great. You can talk another language, write in another language, and read another language. It is like having a secret code that people that don't talk your language will never understand. That's the power of bilingual. Being bilingual is important.